Hey guys, we got a fun video for you today. I got an email from a lady who had recently bought a horse, and he's supposedly, allegedly, he's broke to ride, but when she went to look at him, the previous owner wasn't willing to get on, and she doesn't fully understand why, and so she called me to see if I'll come out and put the horse through his paces, check him out, and make sure he's safe to ride. So let's go ahead and jump into it. So today I'm here with Mary Lou. And first time I had a chance to meet you, I got an email from you. She recently bought a new horse, and the horse hasn't been ridden in about a year, from what I understand.
Year and a half, maybe.
Okay, so she asked me if I would come out and work with the horse, ride the horse, hopefully, and we'll see kind of where the horse is at. But can you tell us a little bit about the story of the horse, the name, age, what you know about him?
Well, his name is Zane, and he's 8 years old, and he's, from what I've dealt with him so far, he's pretty friendly, almost a little too friendly.
Okay.
But he seems really calm about most things.
So when you say too friendly, what does that look like?
He just wants to get a little too close to you.
Okay.
No problem catching him
Okay.
at all. But maybe a little nibbly.
Okay. And he's 8 years old, and do you know what training or riding experience he's had in the past?
Supposedly he had 60 days of professional training, but I don't have proof of that. But from working with him, I believe he has had training, yes.
So you haven't seen him ridden? They didn't ride him when you bought him? None of that?
I stood in the stirrup and leaned over him, and he was fine with that. He's fine being saddled, fine being lunged.
Did there seem like a reason they didn't ride him? Or
This was the second owner that got him as a project, but then changed her mind about having time. So I didn't talk to the original owner.
it does seem a little interesting though, doesn't it, that they didn't ride him? Is it
think
like,
so.
to me, that seems, if I'm selling a horse, I would think I would want to ride the horse and show the horse at its best,
Well,
but
she's-
I'm just curious.
Yeah, she seemed to think that she had to work with him some more on the ground. She said initially when she was lunging him, the rope was tighter, and it had, loosened up so where there was a belly in the rope. But I think she said she just had to get her big girl pants on, and she hadn't done that, and I probably just decided to sell him instead.
So she seemed a little bit unsure about riding him, like he wasn't quite.
At that point,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah. Because, I mean, that matters, right?
Right.
It's like because there's usually reasons for that. And it's good to listen to our instincts. And that's something I would just share. Like, my intention is to ride this horse today, but if he's showing me signs that he's not ready to ride, we won't ride him. But it's a really kind of a subjective thing. Are they ready or aren't they ready? Whether it's a colt or a horse that hasn't been rode in a while. And so in this video, what we're going to do today is show this horse going through an evaluation. I'm going to test out different systems with the horse and see how he handles everything, and we'll determine if it looks rideable or not based on how the horse is responding. And I'll try to point out those things to you that I'm looking for, and then hopefully we find some things that we need to work on. But since I don't know you, I think it'd be great to see you work with him just a little bit here to start, and then we'll
Okay.
jump into it. Does that sound good?
Sounds good.
Okay, let's get to it. Quick second to interrupt this video to thank our sponsor of today's video, which is Drinking Post Waters. I installed 4 of them this summer at my place, and we absolutely love them. So today it's negative 10 degrees here in Wisconsin, and this Drinking Post water has no heater in it, has no electricity to it, and you can see if I come over here and I push down this paddle, the bowl starts filling up with 52-degree ground temperature water. And that is super cool because up here, if your heater goes out in your water tank, it's going to be a bad day and everything's going to be frozen and a lot of damage is going to be done. And so to not have any electricity, this works off the frost-free hydrant principle where the water drains back down to the ground. And when you press down the tab, it comes back out. So we find that our horses drink a lot more water with these, and there's a lot less chance of a horse getting colic in the wintertime. A lot of people don't realize that, but horses tend to not drink water too much in the winter. So this will get your horse drinking more water when it's cold out, and increase your chances of not having to deal with colic. So if you guys are interested, there's going to be a link in the description, dpwaters.com. And if you're interested in saving some money, you can use promo code Ryan Rose to save some money on shipping. So check them out. I think you guys will like them. In order for a horse to be rode safely, I need to test him. He needs to accept the environment. So it seems like he's already pretty good with that. We're in a place that he's familiar with. So that's probably easy. We need to make sure he's understanding rhythmic pressure, which is this. We need to make sure he understands rhythmic motion, which is also this. So when I said this is pressure, it's actually incorrect. Pressure would be if I was using this to drive him somewhere. That's when it turns into pressure versus motion. Then we need to understand steady pressure, which is following a feel. And everybody, kind of sees the halter or the bridle and them following a feel there, but he needs to follow a feel from anywhere on his body. Give his foot for the farrier, or yield to a leg cue, something like that. Then he needs to accept the saddle, and he needs to accept the human. So he needs to not be afraid of us. He seems pretty comfortable with people. He's pretty keen to get closer here. So I'm just going to check him out here with a couple things. And I'm not going to be shy or sneaky. One of the things, I do this for a living, and so, I'm working with lots of different horses on a regular basis, and I need to be able to be safe because there's going to be sometimes unexpected things. Like today I was riding a 2-year-old, or coming 3-year-old, and some snow fell off the roof. And she got spooked and kind of bothered, but she just jumped enough that it wasn't like, and didn't take off bucking or anything like that. And so it wasn't that big a deal, but that was an unexpected thing that happened. And so I would rather be prepared than lucky. So the idea is to kind of not see how slow I can go and get along with him as well as possible today. It's like I want to see how well he handles different situations. Does that make sense to you guys? Because we have to prepare for the kind of unknown. Now you can see there he doesn't like that. He's pinning his ears. And that tells me that he doesn't really understand it because he's reading the flag. He's not reading my energy. Right now my energy is still calm and relaxed. And so I'm just going to stay here and wait until he changes this. So this would be a bad time to release. I could release because he's standing still, but it's a bad time to release because mentally he still has a brace. And you can see that by the look on his face. His head is up. He is blinking, which is good, but the head is up very high and the ears are cocked back. Now he's wanting to look at it there. You see that? So his head's just started to come, so that was a good time to take it away because he was making an effort to understand it and get curious about it. So his first thought was be defensive. Oh, what's going on? And then he went, I kind of want to look at it though. I'm strangely curious. And so that's when I took it away, is when he started to switch to that. I'll go ahead and do it again. So there's, a lot of people know a lot of these techniques, but there's levels to how you do it, what you do first, the sequence of things, and the timing. Like if I release right now, it wouldn't be that meaningful to him, okay? Because he's still standing there with kind of a brace look. Now, instead of just taking a bunch of time, I just backed up and his ears went forward. And that means that he changed his thought there for a second. Now, he is coming into my space, but I don't, at the moment, get the impression that he's trying to take over. I get the impression that when he feels insecure, he wants to be closer to the human, which potentially can be a real positive thing. It can be that he has found relief with people and feels comfortable with people. But we're going to keep an eye on that and just see if he gets spooky. Whatever you do on one side, of course, you want to do on the other side. Make sure they're okay. And the other thing is you want to test the flag out in different areas on the horse. I had it above him, but I kind of want to see how he handles with it behind him. Now, I'm not trying to circle him. I just want to see if he can handle that pressure being behind him there. And so I'm not telling him to go anywhere. He's choosing to leave, and I'm just redirecting there. He's getting better with it. See, so just changing the location, right? A really obvious example of this is like if you're taming a Mustang, they'll get where they accept you right here, but you can't touch them anywhere else, right? You kind of move around and they just follow you the whole time. So eventually, we're going to ride him back there. So he's got to get comfortable with things back there, and which is why I like this flag that's a little longer. It's actually my buddy's flag. He left it at my house. I've been using it. haven't brought it back to him yet. Shout out to Jake. So then you want to rub them all over with it, test it. Now you can see again, he is crowding me right now, but that's not what I'm trying to fix. So not every moment's a training moment, right? So right now my focus is the flag and making sure he's okay with me touching him everywhere and him seeing it everywhere. But now I'm going to switch to rhythmic pressure, and I'm going to see how well he will let me drive him. So let's go ahead and check that out. Because he was defensive with the flag, I don't want to use that to push him around just yet. I would eventually, but now I'm going to switch to a different tool here to. So the first way that I'm going to introduce a horse to yields is I'm just going to own my space. So I'm just saying, this is my spot. And if I can reach him with the stick, I will. But I'm not, it's very low key because I'm not looking at him with my eyes and my belly button. There's a lot of pressure that we put on with our eyes. It's like no different if I walked up to you guys like this. This is like a lot of pressure. Compared to if I was coming backwards even quicker like this, you don't feel pressure. But if I look at you, this feels like more pressure, right? So we need to be aware of that. So I'm not trying to put a lot of pressure on him, but I am trying to get him to understand there's a fan here that he needs to stay out of. And that's a really non-confrontational way to say to a horse, this is my spot, and you can't take that spot. Now, a lot of people would look at a horse like this and they would say, oh, he's got bad ground manners, he's pushy. He could be that. I haven't fully made an opinion yet, but what I'm thinking is I actually think he's a little bit insecure over there. I think he feels more comfortable right next to me. I think it's more of a confidence thing. See him just lick and chew and drop his head? He just relaxed out there. So it wasn't that he wanted to be dominant over me or take my space. It was that he didn't feel okay by himself over there. So that is when we talk about horses' confidence, there's different areas of confidence. So when a horse can be okay by themselves, that's self-confidence. And so you can develop self-confidence in a horse on the ground by having them at a distance from you or by being behind them where they're out in front with no human in front of them. But if we do a lot of things where we're close to them and in front of them, they're associating us with their comfort, which is great for liberty training or other things, but not for building self-confidence. So like what I do at my house sometimes is practice having two horses in the arena and take one out. Are they okay by themselves with a human? Are they okay by themselves tied up with nobody around them, just completely by themselves? And as most people that own horses know, horses get worried by themselves, right? They're left in a paddock or different situations. But this can even apply to this scenario. So you can see he looks way more comfortable there, now. So now I'll just go ahead and move locations. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but if I was working with him every day, I don't think anybody's ever taken the time to teach him this. So I would just take a few days and literally just walk around, stand there, wave your stick, and just ask him to be okay being there. Now, I'm not yielding him. So there's a difference. I'm just saying you can't come into my space, like another horse pinning their ears when they're at the hay pile. It's like, this is my hay pile. Go find your own, But that's different than I'm asking you to yield, and you have to keep moving your feet, okay? So now we're going to do some of those. So because he's been a little bit pushy with his front end, because he's a little insecure, I'm going to practice moving his front end there. He took a step, but then he wanted to roll forward. It's pretty easy for this horse to move his feet forward especially. And so what I'm going to practice is a little pattern of step over, there. And another thing that you've probably noticed with him, he has a fair bit of commotion when he moves. He moves with extra steps. You can't just say, take a step and settle. Take a step and settle. Take 2 steps and settle. Does that make sense? He's kind of fidgety. And so when I'm working with a horse like this, I'm going to be very deliberate about if he takes weird, awkward steps, I'm going to keep going with the yield until the feet, see how that was 2 nice steps? He stepped and stepped. The feet tell us, how he's moving his feet tells us where he's at mentally. If it's scrambly and herky-jerky, what I would call commotion, that tells you that he's a little troubled mentally, right? Emotionally, a little troubled. If he can move his feet in a rhythmic manner, that is what will allow more relaxation to come through. Because mentally, again, that tells us he's more settled. Does that make sense? So working with a horse like this, it's not, did you get him to do the yield or not? It's, did he do it? And see there, he's decompressing again. He's licking and chewing, he dropped his head. When they rub their leg like that, they're actually getting a little bit of an endorphin release by rubbing a gland that's right here under their eye. That feels really good for them to rub when they're coming off of a little bit of adrenaline. But the key to relaxing a horse like this is making sure that you release when the feet have rhythm and relaxation, not commotion. That's probably going to be one of the most important things I tell you while I'm here. So write that one down. Because whenever you work with him, any yield you do, it's unacceptable if it's scrambly. It doesn't matter if he jumped high or side passed long ways or cantered off quick, whatever it was. I would prioritize the quality of the movement over getting the movement. Okay, that's going to be a really important thing. So now I'm going to do the same thing with his hindquarters. So again, if I ask him to move his hindquarters, lots of steps here. He's taking a lot of forward steps. So I'm just going to stay in this yield and hold until the pivot's on the front feet and the hind feet are stepping softly. There. Do you see the difference? It's just subtle, but that's the difference of, and then we went to crowd me. So again, I'll just protect my space there. It's not because I think he's going to, run me over or anything. He needs to be more responsible for his emotions than he is. But he is catching on very quickly, which is good. He wants to be good, you know what I mean? He's like trying to understand everything. But he does feel, and strikes me as feeling insecure. And that's his job to be more okay. So that's more of an emotional problem, getting more emotionally okay with things. See how scrambly the feet are right now? So if I just quit right and release there, I would be releasing on his emotions being high and having tension in his body. I'm going to wait until his feet have rhythm but are also slow. I mean, I guess if you wanted to barrel race him, you might want to release when his feet are going a little faster. But if you want to go on a nice relaxing trail ride, you want to release when his feet are moving slowly. So it kind of depends on what you're going for. But we haven't quite got there yet. To me, those feet are still stepping pretty quick. There he put his nose in front of me to block me, but his feet also slowed down. So he was really like, I'm done doing this. And that was what I was trying to get him to get to. He wanted to stop. Does that make sense? There's a big difference between stopping a horse and controlling them, and you made them stop, versus he chose to stop right there. He was like, okay, we've done this enough, I want to stop. And I want a horse that's easy to move their feet. I want them to want to stop, to make that decision. I don't want to just manage them and contain them and manage the energy. That's all mental choices that we want them to make. Okay? So now we're going to move the front. Because we're evaluating, if I was training, I would then do the next side and but I want to go through a lot of things, so I'm going to keep moving. Like the training in me wants to keep going on what I just did and reinforce that more. But I want to test a few more things. So next thing we're going to test is some steady pressure. And this one is, out of everything I've done, this one is one of the most important things that we're going to do, is ask him to give to steady pressure. Steady pressure is innately one of the most scary things to horses. So if you have a little baby foal that's never been handled, or a Mustang, or an untouched horse, when you first ask them to give to steady pressure, that is one of the most important moments of their life, to give to that pressure correctly. If you take a baby horse that's never had anything done and you put a halter on them, you pull on it, they'll flip over. They'll just flip right over because they have such an opposition reflex to that pressure that's built into them innately. Same with a Mustang. Put a rope on them and pull on it, they will run through a panel and buck through a fence, and they'll kill themselves trying to get out of that pressure because they're scared of it. And so, but steady pressure is one of the most important things that we need them to be good at to ride safely, to be safe for the vet and the farrier, to be easy to handle. And so steady pressure is just really important. But it's kind of boring to watch, because they're kind of standing still and not moving a whole lot. And so I just want to point that out. So there's the common ways that people get horses used to it is, the halter, right? He learned to put his head down. That's great. He knows to come forward off this. That's great. But if we just focus on his head, we're kind of missing some spots on his body, okay? So I'm just going to run through a few of them here, and we're just going to kind of see how he handles it. I'm going to give him a couple of easier ones, and then we're going to get into some harder ones, okay? So the first one here is I'm going to ask him to follow a feel around his body. And this is exactly what I would do is if this was his day one of training, I would just test him out on these things. I would kind of want to know what I'm getting myself into. I really liked how calm that was. He just turned around there really slowly, And so he understood the feel, that's great, but one of the things I'm going to keep looking for with a horse like him is nice, smooth motion instead of commotion. You know, when I'm doing this rope, it's so important to not be sneaky. It's okay if it flops on him. Like, I want to know what if a stirrup flops you or something, or if I'm riding and something happens and I bump them on accident and didn't mean to, will they freak out or will they work through it okay? Very good. So, fantastic. Here's another one. This is a little harder, so it's a little different. I'm going to put it through his front leg here. And then I'm going to just pull on it and see what kind of response we get. So when they feel that pressure on their leg, a lot of horses can get pretty scrambly. But what did he do? He gave his leg and his head at the same time. So that's an A+. That's a really fantastic response to that. But you will see a lot of horses, especially if they have a pullback issue or a trailering issue, they feel claustrophobic, they will freak out when you do that. And you just got to go with them and wait for them to settle through it. But that's a good test right there. Good job. What's his name again? Zane. That's a good name for him. You look like a Zane. Okay, let's get into some harder ones here. Now, you also told me that he didn't buck with a saddle, which is really good news. If he's, not bucking with a saddle, that's a good sign that he handles steady pressure well. If you guys have a question while we're going, feel free to ask it. Now, when I'm going through these tests, if he has a significant reaction to anything, that doesn't bother me at all. What I want to know is how hard is it for him to work through that? Does that make sense? It's like, I don't care if he gets bothered. How long does it take to get him unbothered? That's what tells me more. More than his reaction to anything is how long did he buck for? How long did he stay bothered for? Versus how long did it take for him to get more settled? And the lariat rope is just one of the best tools for this. I think Tom Dorrance used to say there's not a bad place on a horse to hang a rope. And the rope is a good tool because it just touches them in different places. And I'll pull on it a little bit. Like, he's got to get okay with it. But so far, everything that he's done, if I asked myself, could I ride that? I'd be like, yeah. Does that make sense? And he's not afraid of me when I move around him. So these are all really good signs. Now I'm going to ask him for a little bit of a harder one here. I'm going to build a big loop and we're going to put it around his barrel. Now, the saddle that you put on him, did it have a back cinch or just a front cinch? Okay. Again, he wanted to settle and put his head down and walk calmer than it was. So I'll release that pressure there. I think I could ride that too. I don't know. We'll see. But it's not a flank rope. Some people might be watching this thinking it's not a flank rope. Flank ropes will cause them to buck. That's how they get rodeo stock to buck. They put it all the way back here. And if I have a horse that already knows how to buck and I'm trying to get him to not buck, I don't mind putting it there. I'm trying to just have it further back on his barrel than what the cinch normally is. So you can see it's kind of right here. And when I do this, I want to release them on moving forward, not stopping ideally. If I wasn't disorganized with the rope here. Now, see how I'm clucking? It's taking a little more pressure to get him to move. I kind of want that. That's what I'm looking for. Because I don't want him to be... To me, you would put in like 4 ounces of input and you'd get like 4 pounds in return. I want it to be, if you put in 4 ounces, get 4 ounces. You don't want more. If you ask him to walk, you don't want him to gallop. Does that make sense? And when you were playing with him on the ground, to me, he was moving a little bit more than he needed to. So I like that he's getting a little bit softer with everything. So now I'm going to put it on a hind leg. And this is a kind of a delicate spot on a horse that a lot of horses can get bothered when something has kind of got a hold of them right there. So all I'm going to do is see what it takes to get him to stop once I put a feel on it. So I'm not pulling it hard. I'm just putting a little feel and seeing what his response is. And then how long does it take for him to just accept it? There, and relax. So that was like a medium reaction. That wasn't a bad reaction. It wasn't a good reaction. It was a medium one. The question is, did you hear that noise? So earlier I said, well, a great thing that we could hear from him would be, that tells us as we go through this, he's turning loose through his rib cage more and more. And even there, him nibbling on the rope, that tells me he's wanting to be more settled, more comfortable with things. So this is all really good signs. We're seeing lots of good stuff. But now, even more important than that first time is now this second time. How long does it take to get him to stop once I put a feel? That shows us how trainable he is. Much better, right? So that's why I say it doesn't matter how big a reaction we get at first. I mean, a little bit. If they, just completely blow up and leave the county, that's not good, right? But how quickly he accepted that is really the test that I was after there. So he's doing good. So what I'd like to do now is we'll saddle him up, and then I'm going to do a couple of more things with him. But as far as my more dramatic tests, those are kind of it. There's more things that we could do, obviously, but I'm pretty happy with where he's getting with that. So now I want to see him pack a saddle around a little bit. So most of those tests were how well do you accept pressure? Rhythmic, motion, and steady. And I feel like I got a pretty clear picture now. So now accepting the saddle and then accepting the human.